here, and I've been an emergency physician since 1980, and one of the things we do a lot is take care of people with various addiction problems, whether they're just overdosed or drunk and get in an accident or whatever. It's a very common thing. About a third of the practice probably is related to drug use or addiction problems. So I've been interested in it for quite a while. And one of the things that's happened is 12-step recovery has come to predominate the field of what to do with long-term management of people with addiction problems. And I hope to show in the lecture the scope of the problem, definition of addiction, the culture of attitudes, and also the origin of the 12-step process and how it came to be the predominant way things are handled now. One of the things is that the skeptic community has not addressed this too much. Perhaps a notable exception is Penn and Teller did a bullshit show on it several years ago, and it really is good. There's a little clip in this that they had. But there's kind of a good reason for that also. Like take appendicitis, which if you pray for them, about half of them get better, which still makes it a very deadly disease. But with conventional medical treatment, you can get it to less than 1 in 1,000. It's a fairly easily treatable condition. So nowadays, when someone lets a child die because they prayed for him instead of putting him in the doctor, it actually makes headlines. It's a very common thing. But with addiction problems, basically conventional medical people, they've really got nothing. And I want to distinguish between long-term recovery versus acute problems, because the medical field is pretty good at handling overdoses and liver problems from drinking and that sort of stuff. But as far as keeping people off of or getting them out of their addiction long-term, we really got nothing. As a matter of fact, what we do in the medical field is send you back to the faith healers. And that's kind of considered conventional medical treatment for rehab centers and things like that now. And so I want to talk a little bit about the scope of the problem. It's obviously a major issue, $500 billion a year, a lot of deaths, and overdoses, things like that, and also a lot of injuries. A lot of long-term misery from chronic problems. Children of addicted parents tend to be abused and have problems as they get older, and also addiction problems are risk factors for crime, incarceration, accidents, birth defects, divorce. So combine the effects of tobacco, alcohol, and drugs inflict a greater toll on the health and well-being of Americans with any other single preventable factor. And it seems to be getting worse. If you look over the last 10 years or so, overdose, drug deaths are exceeded only by motor vehicle accidents as a cause of death. And if you look at this graph, almost all of it is the green area there. It's prescription medications. Now, around the turn of the century, the Y2K time, there was a big push in the medical field for pain management. There was actually a doctor in Oakland or Northern California who was literally cuffed and arrested, taken out of the emergency room because some patient felt he didn't get enough pain medicines while he was there. So the tide turned to let's try to help a more aggressive pain management. And unfortunately, a lot of this resulted in just increased prescriptions for painkillers. And like now, in the United States, about per capita, we use about twice as much narcotics as other developed nations per capita. And one of the results of that is obviously the increase in overdoses. Now let's try to define addiction a bit. It's a term that defies precise definition. A little older definition, the American Psychiatric Association, basically outlines it as behavior problems. Maladaptive drug use, obsession, consuming drugs in larger quantities and over longer periods of time than were intended. Continued use despite adverse consequences and attempts to stop that fail. A little more modern, the definition, the American Society of Addiction Medicine, they define it a little more as a dysfunction of neural circuitry. And there's actually a lot of good evidence that over time and continued exposure to drugs, alcohol, addictive substances, your brain literally changes. The neurohumoral chemistry changes. Your ability to resist cravings and stuff diminishes, and you tend to spiral down into more difficult time to quit. Now, it's been said that addiction is a disease. Is alcoholism a disease? Again, that's hard to define. There's a difference between the medical field as like objective versus non-objective diseases. Of course, if somebody has consistently elevated blood pressure, you say, okay, that's an objective abnormality. You got hypertension. There's nothing like that for addiction, and it turns out when there's no objective findings, defining a disease tends to be more social or political or economic. For instance, homosexuality was considered a disease until like 1976 or so. And they just classified obesity as a disease because they're now compensating doctors for nutritional counseling and stuff like that. So there's kind of an economic reason for that. Whereas in alcoholism or addiction, there was active lobbying by Alcoholics Anonymous in the 50s to get alcoholism classified as a disease. And that's largely to get more medical help and insurance compensation, things like that. But like I said, once you're hooked, once the addiction process is full bore, your brain really has changed, and it's very hard to resist, and you get withdrawal syndromes, things like that. So it's kind of easy to say, yeah, that's a disease, that's objective abnormalities. But what about early on? The first drink or the first drug? Because most everybody has taken a drink or used something now and then. A while ago, Sam Harris wrote this book, and it just made many people, including skeptics, that he maintains that free will is an illusion, and we're pretty much all the products of our environment and genes and all that other sort of thing. So really, I find it's best to not be judgmental of addicts, no matter how they got there. But one thing about the effect of drugs and alcohol and stuff, as time goes on, the drugs and the alcohol, they become very strong string pullers. And it's very hard to get out of the spiral once you're there. I'd like to talk a little bit about social attitudes in this country, because it impacted the environment in which Alcoholics Anonymous was started. From Puritan times till the early 19th century, alcoholics or people who couldn't control their drinking were largely felt to be sinners. And you either went to church to get reformed or you basically died alone. And But then around 1820 or so, the temperance movement started. And their attitude was a little different. It was kind of that alcohol was bad. You know, the term demon rum was coined by temperance movement. And there was, they opened up what were called inebriate asylums. And, you know, they were kind of modeled after the insane asylums of the time, which probably weren't very helpful, but at least an attempt was made to help these people and not just shun them. Now, from, of course, the temperance movement culminated in Prohibition in 1920. And that turned out to be a bit of a disaster, you know, a huge increase in organized crime and things like that, and the law was, you know, widely flaunted. And at that time, the alcohol industry, mostly in Canada, and you know, some local lobbyists and stuff, put out a big PR campaign that, you know, alcohol's not bad, it's not demon rum, it's just the alcoholics that are bad. And why let a few people who have drinking problems ruin it for everybody? So, you know, the PR campaign sort of worked, and they, you know, they didn't like the organized crime problem. So, in 1933, the Prohibition was rescinded. Now, what good is a lecture without going off on a tangent every now and then? So. You know, it's not all gloom and doom. You know, people actually like to drink and they like to drug, and there's some people who actually made sort of a career out of it. W.C. Fields used to, he actually was an alcoholic. He died from liver failure, and you know, it was pretty miserable when he died. But he turned it into sort of a comedy routine, and actually, although he was an alcoholic, he, you know, never missed a performance due to drinking, and he detested sloppy drunks. And one time, he used to carry a bottle of that he called pineapple juice when he was working on the set. And one day, one of the stagehands, you know, emptied out his liquor and put in pineapple juice. And so in the middle of the set, you know, W.C. grabs his giant toothpicks and he goes, "Ah, who put the pineapple juice in my pineapple juice?" Another interesting, actually less known fact of W.C. Fields is he was a lifelong atheist, and one day on his near the end, or you know, on his deathbed, he was thumbing through the Bible, and somebody asked him, he goes, "W.C., what are you doing looking at the Bible? You've been an atheist all your life." And so he goes, "Well, I'm looking for loopholes." So anyways, Christopher Hitchens, I don't know if he identified as an alcoholic. He was certainly a heavy drinker and a heavy smoker. Did this contribute to his, you know, irascible, confrontational style? Probably did. You know, he did die from esophageal cancer, which is actually very rare in people who aren't drinkers and smokers. And then Hunter Thompson, he celebrated his, you know, drug and alcohol abuse, and you know, revolutionized the field of journalism. Here's a page from a diary, a biography of his. You know, basically wakes up at 3 p.m. and outlines, you know, booze, drugs, cocaine, you know, and starts writing around midnight, and continues to use and abuse, and that was his kind of daily routine. He suicided at age 67, and there's a little controversy about that. They said he had multiple medical problems from old injuries and things like that. You know, I don't know. But he left a note, and he said that he lived 17 years longer than he thought he would. He really figured he would die. And with this schedule, I'm not surprised. Then there's a comedian named Doug Stanhope, who does and put this in his act.
That's the alcohol. But it makes me funnier. That's why I'm drinking. Ironically, I'm drinking to be more professional. Because I'm funnier when I'm drunk. I really am. 17 years. I have AA friends that I've had for lifelong friends that all of them have had to eventually cave in and admit that I'm funny when I'm drunk. It fucking kills them. It's like they have to deny their own religion to admit it. Like, all right, you fucking... That was a good shot. I know you're fucking ripped, but... Doug, you have a serious problem, and you make jokes about it. That's how you deal with it. But I've been in the program for a long time. If you ever want someone to talk to, but don't quit tonight, though. We have tickets for the late show. But we've seen you sober. It's a stuttering, awkward wreck with no self-confidence. But tomorrow, if you'd like to talk to me, I'm up at 6 a.m. Fuck you. Fucking horrifying. Have an AA guy tell you to your face he's supposed to be the know-it-all and he tells you that your career is dependent on your disease. Kind of a scary proposition. It's like having your psychiatrist tell you that not only are the voices in your head real, but they're accurate as well. So I should kill the babysitter? I'm afraid so. I'm pouring more funny down my head. Pipe down. Jesus died for your sins. I'm doing it for your mere entertainment dollar.
So, anyways, back to let's look at the origin of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's sort of the prototype of the originated the 12 steps, and all of the other groups, Narcotics Anonymous, Cocaine Anonymous, are modeled after this. A couple of prequel items to consider is not just the environment, the post-prohibition thing where alcoholics were very stigmatized. But they also had a group they call the Oxford Group, which was a Christian group that, for whatever reason, they decided that Christianity, as it was then, had gotten away from their roots and stuff. A very common reason for a splinter group from some religion is they think their parent group is corrupt. So they formed a group to try to get back to basic Christian principles. They were pretty fundamentalist. And they had what they called the four absolutes of honesty, purity, unselfishness, and love. And they also had the four spiritual practices. Sharing our sins with another Christian, restitution, listening for God's guidance, and surrender our life to God's keeping. Now, another thing that happened is Carl Jung was a psychiatrist, in the 1920s, and he had this patient named Roland, who was an alcoholic. And after a few months of therapy, Carl Jung dismissed him from his practice, and he said, as long as you're drinking and stuff, we're just wasting our time here, which is actually an attitude contemporary psychiatrists have. Until you get your addiction under control, pretty much any other therapy is useless. So Roland asked Carl Jung, is there anything you can suggest? Is there any hope for me? And he said, well, I don't know, short of getting a group of bodyguards to keep you, hire them to keep you from drinking. But I have heard some anecdotal reports of alcoholics who have quit drinking by having a spiritual conversion. So, maybe you might want to try that. And so, I don't know what Roland did, but he went out and had a spiritual awakening and quit drinking. And so then he ran across this man named Eddie, And Evie, Roland told Evie that he had quit drinking, and Evie was also an alcoholic. He said, how did you do it, Roland? He said, well, I went up and I had a spiritual conversion, and I quit drinking. So Evie started going to Oxford group meetings. And sure enough, he had a spiritual awakening, and he quit drinking. And one day he ran across this man named Bill Wilson, who is one of the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Bill was astounded that this guy was sober. So, Evie invited him to an Oxford group meeting. So he started going. And Bill Wilson was actually pretty agnostic and, not really a non-believer, probably what we would call a nun today. But he went with them, really didn't like the Oxford group meetings, and kept on drinking. And then he was put in a hospital because he got very ill, and he went into alcohol withdrawals and things. He had kind of a quack doctor who gave him hallucinogenic drugs, and scopolamine in particular. And Bill Wilson had what he described as his white light experience, where just everything went white, and he had a profound sense of spiritual calm and spiritual awakening, and he actually never drank again the rest of his life. And so he continued to go with Evie to Oxford group meetings, and he started taking other alcoholics along. And he noted that many of the people that he brought to the meetings weren't really doing well. They were still drinking and stuff, but he was staying sober, trying to help other alcoholics. So he sort of came up that, I think it's important to have a spiritual conversion and help other alcoholics. Now, in the course of this, he had to go on a business trip, and he went to Akron, Ohio. And while he was away from his, he lived in New York. While he was away from New York, he was getting the cravings, very tempted. So he called some of the local Oxford people in Akron and got the name of Dr. Bob Smith, who they said they were working with him to sober up but weren't having much luck. So he went over to speak with Dr. Bob, as they call him, and he ended up getting sober, and he's the other co-founder of AA, so the first day of AA is considered to be June 10th of 1935. So it started off with just one meeting in Akron, one meeting in New York, and kind of slowly grew more later on the growth of AA. But during this period, they worked on what's called the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and worked on the 12 steps. And let's kind of look those over right now. The first step is just to admit that you can't manage your own life, and you need help. Then it starts getting into, again, the parallels with the Oxford principles, that you need a higher power, you need a power greater than yourself, and turn your will and life over to them. The next 4 steps are kind of like what I call it self-improvement steps. Let's take a moral inventory and admit our wrongs, et cetera, and try to make ourselves a better person. Good things. 8 and 9 are restitution steps. Again, going along with the Oxford 4 principles. And then the last 3 steps are sort of the maintenance steps. And so, again, putting in with the spiritual awakening aspect, it's basically the Oxford principles, apply to addiction. Again, this has never been studied. There's no evidence this does any good. And I'd like to briefly mention the 13th step. It's a common problem in AA, and what that is basically AA members hitting on newcomer women. And it's actually a problem. A lot of people come to AA and they're on a DUI court card, or they've lost their job, or they've lost their spouse, or they've lost their kids, and they generally come in under very bad circumstances. And people really are kind of vulnerable at that time. And they're ripe for religious conversion, but they're also ripe for exploitation by most anyone. And so it is a problem. There's actually a lawsuit against California AA now. Some woman in Santa Clarita was murdered by some AA guy that she met and started living with. Now, I'm going to talk a bit about the value of religion, because in my opinions of it, and why I think some of these things may actually have a role to play. A minimal role, but a role. One is, patternicity and agency. There was a podcast, some philosopher was on, and was asked the question, why are people religious? Is it because they're afraid of death, or they need comfort in times of need, and in times of trauma, and they want to be immortal? What's really mean? And you said, and the philosopher goes, no, it satisfies our mere instinctual need for agency. And I hope you're all familiar with these terms, but basically it's our tendency to notice patterns of things, to feel there's a purpose to things. And, God is, of course, the ultimate agent. What this has to do with 12 step, I don't know. What 12-step groups do offer, though, is they offer a community, a support network, a place to go for people with similar sort of struggles. In my opinion, that's why AA may have some marginal help. It's basically a community where you can go, where you don't have to be ashamed of what you've done, and you're not stigmatized, and people really care about you. And the 12-step groups also have like a sponsored program where you're supposed to get somebody who's had more time in the program, and they're supposed to sort of guide you through the process. Now, other possible potential value of religion. This study shows here some effects of prayer if you're a believer. Okay, I'll show in the yellow part right there. They argue that praying to God is an intersubjective experience comparable to normal interpersonal interaction. In other words, if I put myself in a functional MRI and pray, areas of my brain will light up for speech and language recognition and that sort of stuff, and that's it. You put a highly religious person in the same machine, and not only will those areas light up, but an area of the brain that lights up with personal interaction with somebody. So literally they could be praying and they believe they're speaking to somebody. And that's an important concept, that if you're a believer, if you have God in the brain, your brain behaves as though you do. Okay? So, and this can be helpful. Like, for instance, we know that we have kind of a basic need to be altruistic. Just read Stephen Pinker's stuff. And if if someone asks you to pray for their Aunt Millie because she's sick, and you pray for Aunt Millie and you're a believer, you really think you've helped Aunt Millie. The effect prayer is as a force acting over a distance has been disproved, but the person who's doing the praying may get some benefit. And, obviously prayer is a part of 12-step too. This relates more to general religious belief, not specifically praying. Again, I'll read the highlighted part there. Our results demonstrate that specific components of religious belief are mediated by well-known brain networks and support contemporary psychological theories that religious belief within evolutionary adaptive cognitive functions. Now, what cognitive functions they're referring to in the article are socialization and attachment. We're a species that needs, socialization. We rely on each other. We're a tribal whatever. We like groups. We might get Jen and John arrange this group. Meeting. Attachment, again, is one of the most powerful emotions that we have. Some of the most painful things we can go through is loss of an attachment, such as divorce or death of a child or, some other loss like that. Now, to explain that, why this results in God beliefs, I'm looking at the work of J. Anderson Thompson. He's a research psychiatrist who, a decade or so ago, was given grants to study why people strap bombs on themselves and walk, into crowded buildings for religious reasons. Obviously, a subject of some concern to the Department of Homeland Security. And this is sort of what he came with. It wasn't just his work, but other people. It's very well summarized in this book. You can get it from Amazon or Richard Dawkins Foundation. Briefly, he describes it like this. We like Big Mac, Coke, and fries more than broccoli. Okay, it turns out that broccoli is actually better for us. But our appetite has developed in an environment where these real sweet food or fatty foods or salty pasta is actually quite rare. So, stimulating our appetites with Big Mac fries and a Coke is sort of like our appetite on steroids, or super our appetite on steroids, I'll sometimes say. Now, analogizing that to us, you is basically generic anybody. It turns out that our attachments and socialization we have with each other can also have a supernormal stimulus, okay? And that is our the God in our brain, our imaginary friend. The imaginary friend is perfect. He never let you down. He's always loves you at all times. He knows everything that you're doing. And whereas other people will let us down and things, it turns out that other people are, that you are more important. That our social network, people we're talking to and things like that, are actually more important than just like broccoli is more important than Big Mac, Coke, and fries. So we have this bond. Very religious people have this bond with their imaginary friend that we may think is silly. But when someone comes on YouTube strumming the guitar saying that Jesus loves them, believe them. They really are feeling the love, and they're I've always been kind of amazed why religious people seem very threatened by atheists. I just read this thing. Some interfaith council. Some atheists, they wanted to invite atheists in, and it literally destroyed their interfaith council because half of the people said, "Oh, we don't want any atheists in here." You actually have much more to fear from other religious groups. When was the last time you heard of an atheist group storming a mall and shooting religious people? I think it's because we threaten that bond. You know, it's okay if other people have that bond, but we don't. And so, you know, we threaten that super normal attachment that they have. So, you know, for our first prize of the day, it's your very own Jesus dashboard bumper. So, if you could tell me the name of the man here and yell that.
Bob. He's first.
Church is up to yes.
There you go.
Robert.
Now, full name.
Robert
And, yeah, it's J.R. Bob Dobbs, the living God who walks the planet Earth in huckster shoes.
I'll let anybody else have that.
Yeah.
I rode a motorcycle.
Oh, he was first. I'll take it. I got it out first.
First, but I'm saying I don't want it because I've got a motorcycle.
Okay, who got it?
All right.
Cool.
Did they bring back patch?
No, not for that.
So anyways, once you've got your God on the brain, he's very hard to evict. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, Letting Go of God, but Julia Sweeney gives a very touching and humorous, you know, account of her literally decades-long struggle with coming from a very religious childhood to atheism. Anyways, this is the creation of Adam on, you know, the roof of the Sistine Chapel. You know what Adam is thinking here? Okay, he's going, God, thank you for this great athletic body, but couldn't you give me a bigger penis? No, there's actually some speculation that Michelangelo may have been a secret atheist, because if you look at the, you know, the burgundy canopy behind God and the angels, it's actually in the outline of a brain, with the temporal lobe cleft, cerebellar cleft, stuff like that. And it shows God emerging from the brain. Anyways, who knows? But we do have some evidence that the flying spaghetti monster was made up by Bobby Henderson in 2005. You know, I put this in for a couple of reasons. One is in this book, Richard Feynman talks about at one point when he was doing graduate studies, he got into this thing where he was partying almost every night with some people. And one day, he at 11 o'clock in the morning, he was strolling through the campus or something, and he had a real craving for alcohol. And he said this was odd, and so he realized that he was having a craving, whereas before he never had them before, and so he stopped drinking, and he never drank again. Even when he got his Nobel Prize, he made sure there was grape juice in the little toasting glass, you know. And so it does give a good anecdote about how sort of prolonged exposure can result in some changes, resulting in, you know, more cravings and, you know, other issues. Now, he fortunately had the insight to realize something had changed, and he sobered up. You know, who knows what would have been lost if he would have done that, you know. You know, one of Feynmanism, I guess, is, you know, he said the first principle of being a scientist is not to fool yourself. And you are the easiest person to fool. So he also kind of recognized that you gotta be a skeptic for yourself, not just for other things. You know, Carl Sagan once said, every kid starts out as a natural born scientist, and then we beat it out of them. A few trickle through the system with their wonder and enthusiasm for science intact. I like Carl Sagan, and contributed a lot, but I disagree with that. I think we're actually natural born magical thinkers. And we want these supernatural things in our life, and it's skepticism that's actually uncommon. In Michael Shermer's book, The Believing Brain, he said the brain is a belief engine. The brain naturally begins to look for it and find patterns, and then infuses those patterns with meaning. So the difference between a skeptic and a believer is that the skeptic accepts, the Feynman postulate that, we're the easiest people to fool. So, I want to look at another aspect of 12-step is Alcoholics Anonymous at cult. Now, I managed to snag this graphic off of